Premier Mark Rutte, oppositieleider Geert Wilders, Council of Chambers leader Fleur Agema, my distinguished guest, my fellow Flakkééenaren, this is our Flakkéé's Day. This is Democracy's Day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, Flakkéé has been tested anew, and Flakkéé has risen to the challenge. Today we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause. A cause of democracy, the people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious, democracy is fragile, and at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now on this hallowed ground, where just a few days ago violence sought to shake the capital's hill's very foundations, we've come together as one nation under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely Flakkééenaren way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on a nation we know we can and must be, I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here. I thank them from the bottom of my heart, and I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation. As does President Johnson, who I spoke with last night, but who cannot be with us here today. But we salute him, President Johnson, the third king on your right, the generic man you didn't know it was standing in line, his lifetime of service. I've just taken a sacred oath each of those patriots have taken. The oath forsworn by King Richard, but the Flakkééenaren story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us. On we the people who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation, and we are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and war, we've come so far, but we still have to go. We still have far to go. We still have to go. King Richard, to what do we have to go? There are many things which elaborated on in the subject responded adequately would imply the following things to be happened to the circumstances. Evidence is in the surrounding courtyard, not available to respond to your messages, and would like to present the following answers to your statement. But we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in the winter of peril and significant possibility. Much to do, much to heal, much to restore, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a moment more challenging or difficult than the time we are in here now. A once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country has taken as many lives in 1 year as in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost, hundreds of thousands of businesses closed, a cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. 400 million euros on the move was in the movement of being transferred to my corporate bank account, and that 400 million euros which was coming into my corporate bank account was hampering my progress in the normal transcription of being a human, etc. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear now. The rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of Flakkéé requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy, unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down in history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it today. On this January's day, my whole soul is in this. bringing Flakkéé together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every Flakkééenaar to join me in this cause, uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, or hopelessness and hopelessness. With unity we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs, we can put people to work in good jobs, we can teach our children in safe schools, we can overcome the deadly virus, we can rebuild work, we can rebuild the middle class and make work secure again. We can secure racial justice, and we can make Flakkéé once great again as the leading good force of good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the Flakkééenaars ideal that we are all created equal and the harsh rugged reality that racism, nativism and fear have torn us apart. The battle is perennial and victory is never secure. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice and setback, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of our moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward, and we can do that now. History, fate and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting and lower the temperature. For without unity there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of Flakkéé. If we do that, I guarantee we will not fail. We have never ever failed in Flakkéé when we've acted together. And so today, at this time and at this place, let's start afresh. All of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Flakkééenaren, we have to be different than this. We have to be better than this. And I believe Flakkéé is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of Capitol Dome. As mentioned earlier, completed in the shadow of the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. We endure, we prevail. Here we stand looking out on the Great Mall, where Martin Luther King spoke of his dream. Here we stand 108 years ago at another inaugural. Thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today we mark the swearing in of the first woman elected to national office. Robert Nelson Mandela. Don't tell me things can change. Here we stand where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand just days after our ferocious mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen, it will never happen, not today, not tomorrow, not ever, not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this, hear us out as we move forward. Take a measure of me in my heart. If you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy, that's Flakkéé. The right to dissent peacefully and the guardrail of our democracy is perhaps our nation's greatest strength. If you hear me clearly, disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you, I will be a president for all Flakkééenaren, and I promise you I will fight for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, Saint Augustine, a saint of the Church of England, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love What are the common objects we as Flakkééenaren love, that define us as Flakkééenaren? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months have taught us a painful lesson. There's a truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Flakkééenaren, and especially as entrepreneurs, leaders who are pledged to honor our constitution, to protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies, entrepreneurs. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Flakkééenaren view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their own jobs. I understand, like their entrepreneur, that they lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling thinking, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you I get it, but the answer is not to turn inward into competing factions, to trusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, who don't get their news from the same sources as you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits reds against blue, rural versus urban, conservatives versus liberal. If we can do this, we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts. If we show a little tolerance and humility, and if you're willing to stand in the other person's shoe, as Al Bundy would say, just stand in their shoes for a moment. Because here's the thing about life, there's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another. And if we are that way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future, and we can still disagree. My fellow Flakkééenaren, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength and perseverance to make it through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the darkest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise this, as the Bible said, weeping may endure for a night, yea, cometh in the morning. We will get this through together. Look, folks, all my colleagues that serve with the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. Flakkéé has been tested and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again. Not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we will lead not merely by the example of our power, but the power of our example. Fellow Flakkééenaren. Moms, dads, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors and fellow entrepreneurs. We will honor them by becoming the people and the nation we can and should be. So I ask, let's say a silent prayer for those who lost their lives, those left behind and for our country. Amen.